Yes, hello everyone and welcome to all our West Australian football fans to another edition of Around the WAFL, hot off the heels of what was an absolutely absorbing round 3 of the WAFL season. We're going to break it down for you all here today on your go-to WAFL podcast for 2024. Paul Persick alongside Ethan Roth and Rothy. Wasn't round 3 an absolute ripper?
Fascinating. I don't know if we had a close round of footy in WAFL for some time like that. So plenty of results. We made to look a bit stupid with that Eagles and Sharks prediction. But I think most people would be in the same boat.
Oh, I think with some other games as well, they tipped maybe a few upsets and some maybe didn't go the right team. But there was a lot of big results in round 3 of the WAFL. And of course, we're going to break them down to you in just a moment on your go-to podcast for 2024.
Win. Win. Almost a win. Win. It's win-win at the WAFL. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
Well, there are a lot of big win-wins in the WAFL, especially for Subiaco. Of course, they are 2-1 to begin the 2024 season. They had a thrilling win over West Perth at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. And joining us now, he is the Lions captain and is leading from the front from the outset in 2024. He wears the number 1 and he's proving to be number 1. Greg Clark from the Subiaco Football Club. He joins us now. Clarky, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Great to have you on the show. I tell you what, it was a real tight tussle over there at Leederville against the Falcons. They kept coming at you, but so you found that extra bit of reserve and win the game by just 4 points.
Yeah, it was a really tight contest all day, and West Perth played with a really strong brand and identity, and at the end of the day, we sort of consider ourselves a bit lucky to have come away with the result, with so much to work on and so much scope for us to grow. So at the end of the day, the result was really good, but we know there's a lot more to build on in our process.
And personally, coming back to the footy club this year, did the captaincy, was that something you expected, and how you feel like you've been able to adapt to the captaincy?
It definitely wasn't something I expected. I just knew that coming back to the football club, that had given me so much. I just wanted to give that back to the younger playing group, and just sort of instill everything I'd learnt having been in the AFL system for 2 years. So I think the captaincy was a bit of a byproduct of that, and it's just really nice to have the trust of my teammates that they back me in as the leader. But I've got fantastic leaders around me in Drew Road and Luke Foley and Ryan Borchett, and Lee Kitchen helps me out a lot with a lot of the leadership stuff, being the previous captain and the amount of success he had. So yeah, it's been really good so far.
You're part of a star-studded midfield, along with the likes of Lee Kitchen and also a couple of the others that got a lot of the ball. Jack Mayo, who also played a bit up forward as well. Drew Rowe, Jamin Alone, and even Richard Bartlett, who has a bit of that spark up forward and further up the ground to get a lot more of the football. What's it like playing with those guys?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like you just touched on Richie Bartlett coming in his second game. I think the good thing about the guys you've mentioned is everyone's got different strengths. And when we're playing our best footy, everyone's sort of bringing their different flair and their different, I'd sort of say as their one would, what their go-to is of being their unique player. So as long as we can keep bringing out the best in each other, there's a lot of differences in our personalities in the way we play. So it's just about bringing that all together and making sure we bring that on game day.
And Claremont this week at Rebo Fitness Stadium, they haven't obviously won a game, so they're going to come out hungry. You must be looking forward to that clash.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, across the years, we've had some really good tussles with Claremont. There's a bit of a rivalry there between the two clubs, considering how strong they've been for so many years. So I know they certainly internally wouldn't be too happy with an 0-3 start, and we know they're going to come out firing. So we're going to have to be at the top of our game to combat that.
Would you say that you're enjoying your footy a lot more compared to your stint over at the Eagles, because you've been able to play to the position that you've been most suited for, and the results have really proven very strong early?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a hard one to compare because there's such different situations where one you're playing in an aligned WAFL side to the Eagles, and it's hard to get that continuity between players, especially with the injuries that the club had faced while I was there for 2 years. Whereas coming into Subi, in the WAFL environment, it's a set team, obviously. So there is a lot of differences in the two situations, but I definitely don't take for granted the opportunity I had over a couple of years at the Eagles. And yeah, it's hard to compare the two, but at the moment I'm just really happy to be playing my role within Subiaco, and yeah, hopefully we can chase some success and bigger things.
You've played your role quite well in the first 3 games of the season, and it has delivered 2-1 in the 5, and we look forward to seeing you in action again against Claremont at Rivo Fitness Stadium on Saturday. Thanks for your time, Greg. All the best.
Cheers, Greg.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
That was Greg Clark from the Subiaco Football Club. Definitely a captain who has led from the front in the first 3 rounds, 2 wins, 1 loss, and currently in the 5. It's going to be a big year for Greg Clark and a big year for Subiaco.
Yeah, just such a humble guy as well. I wonder if the pressure's been taken off him, obviously not having to push for AFL selection every week when he's playing in the WAFL, can really enjoy his footy, and as I've said many times, just racks up the ball, and just a great character. Was lucky enough to speak with him on the Brain Nathan podcast a couple of years ago. So, yeah, just so willing with his time.
And he made a good point about the continuity that Subiaco has in contrast to the Eagles, because, it's not an AFL selected side, so to speak. You don't have a lot of those AFL plays, but you do have depth through continuity, is what's what Subiaco's got in spades.
Yeah, and 3-0, they're wanting to really set up their season now.
Absolutely.
If they can go 4-0 this week, I mean, that's just going to elevate them and probably put them at the top compared to the other teams with that little bit of a breathing room.
Punt from 50, win. Little too into the game, win. Too cocky, almost a win. Risking it all for the glory, win. It's win-win at the WAFL. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
We'll start it off at Lane Group Stadium in Mandurah, Ethan, and East Perth. I wouldn't say they looked home and hosed at 3/4 time, but they had the momentum heading into the last quarter against Peel Thunder. Then all of a sudden, 5-goal 4-4 behinds, Peel just rampaged along in that final term and would go on to win by 16 points. A real confidence-boosting win for the Thunder.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised considering the last quarter has been East Perth's strength. So Peel looking, proving a point there. Good to see Nathan Wilson clutch back inside 50 after, I wouldn't say a lack in form, because obviously he kicked 5 goals in round 1, but obviously, channeled that again in round 3.
Especially with those 2 goals in the last quarter. I was calling the game on the AFL app and just found that Wilson wasn't getting himself into the best positions inside that 50. But whenever he's let loose, whenever he's on the lead and getting that midfield supply from the likes like Hancock, Gray, and even Will Brodie, that's when he really gets at his best. And Nathan Wilson, he was incredible in that last quarter. Took the game right out of East Perth, considering that he had been shut down for the majority of the day until that last quarter by Jacob Blight. Not by Jacob Blight, rather. The back line for East Perth and Kai Wilcox, Stanley Wright, who played a bit down back as well, and even the likes of Adam Bowles as well. He switched a little bit down back as well. Didn't get a lot of the football, but created a big role in shutting down Nathan Wilson for the majority of that game.
Yeah, and they don't have a big back line either in terms of those guys. Like, they're pretty small key defenders, I guess you could say. So they rely more of their running off half-backs. Dan Wright with absolute beauty of a goal. That was a monster.
55 out. I mean, he can let off those big long bombs from outside 50. It's not the first time he's done that.
It's a revelation. Yeah, you want the ball in his hands no matter where on the ground. So Stan Wright, I know he's missed a little bit of footy, but when he's back in that Royals lineup, they're all much better for it.
In the last quarter, we'll go to Jacob Blight now. 10 marks inside defensive 50. Usually East Perth's forward line through the likes of Tommy Medhat, Sam Van Diemen and Liam Tedesco pepper the goals, but they were shut down big by Jacob Blight. Played such a big roll for the Thunder in their win on Saturday. 10 marks, very impressive.
Yeah, they've got such a good spine. You've got Tregenza at one end, Blight at the other, both the youngsters, and Blight just taking his game to another level. He's been someone who has been, I guess, stated for higher honours, potentially. So that's a big performance for his confidence. He's a confidence player, I think.
Speaking of Tregenza, 2 goals. I mean, he was a real revelation coming out of the Colts side and then making his way over to the big time. 6 marks as well. And he makes a good addition to the existing Thunder spine that they've got.
Yeah, he's so young. He can mark the ball really well. It's amazing a marking player, when they can clunk those marks early in a game, what it can do for the rest of their game and impact other facets of their performance.
What about East Perth's midfield? The on-ball brigade, again, they fired up. Hammer Brayshaw, 28. Mitch Crowden, 24. Stanley Wright, along with that big goal from 55, he had 21 possessions. They had all the momentum. They were getting first to the football, but that last quarter, they just stopped.
Yeah, and if you look at the disposal count, East Perth only get 7 more disposals in the total of the match. So Peel, I think, matched it in their midfield.
They did.
You know, I think it's fair to say East Perth probably do have the best midfield in the competition. So they did well there. And, I think the Royals, you know, I'm not necessarily saying they were complacent, but I think it's a bit of a reality check for them.
I think so, yeah. It's a much-needed one. It's a much-needed one, considering that they've got the bye and they've got a couple of big games of following that bye. So I reckon for Ross McQueen, it's going to be a big fortnight for East Perth to get back onto the winners list.
And they don't travel much to Mandurah, I don't feel, as well. So that was a good experience to get on the road a bit, and probably the furthest place to travel in a WAFL sense.
Absolutely. Peel Thunder victorious in the first game of round 3, a real absorbing contest by 16 points. Now, what about this one? South Fremantle almost blew it against Claremont. Claremont came back. They dominated the inside 50s, but were inaccurate in front of goal. Think about this. 1 goal, 8 in the last quarter to just 1 behind. If Claremont kicked straight, they would have won the match. But in the end, the Bulldogs getting home by the barest of margins, a single point.
They came out all guns blazing. I think it was 4 or 5 goals in a row to start the first quarter. It looked like
7-3 in total.
A blowout. Luke Polson. Gee, he looks like a handy recruit.
He does. He's unbelievable. Luke Polson, he was on a roll. I mean, 2 goals from the 10 disposals he had. Didn't get much of the football, but created such an impact in that forward 50, and he's a handy inclusion for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, spent last year in Kalgoorlie, so it's good to see him back in the WAFL competition at a new club, and seems like he's gelling well as that sort of main key forward, it looks like, from a Bulldogs point of view. But yeah, I mean, they've sort of made the most of the lack of Tigers defence, I guess, that we've been talking about as a concern in that first quarter, and obviously it paid dividends for them in the end, albeit almost choking.
Absolutely, but we'll go over some of the key numbers as well. First of all, for the winners, Matthew Parker, of course, free from, having to push for AFL selection, again, played one of his best games, 27 disposals. Isaiah Winder, good inclusion for the Bulldogs league side, 24 disposals, including 3 marks. Joshua Branchy, he and Oliver Eastland engaged in a great battle in the ruck. Even though Branchy was beaten in the hitouts, Branchy's follow-up work at the start was very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no bigger test than Ollie Eastland at the moment in the WAFL competition. So he's going to take a lot from that. And the stats are one thing, but his work around the ground, his competitiveness as well. So he's just improving by the week.
So too is Zach Strom up forward. He's getting better with form. 5 goals, including he had a little stint in the ruck. He had the 8 hitouts with 7 marks. Could be one of the more imposing forwards of the season if he keeps this form up inside the 50.
Yeah, well, I heard Skeet on the commentary say if one Strom doesn't get you, the other will, whether it's Zach or Noah at one end of the ground. So, they're just a formidable duo, and just so big. Like, how are you going to stop that sort of player?
And think about it. South Fremantle were without a couple of keys in their spine. Of course, you talk about the likes of Dragovic and co. Dragovic didn't play. Bletchinen and Florenka didn't get a lot of the football, but it was good to see South Fremantle get that backup in the form of Parker and Winder. Goes to show that there is depth in the Bulldogs midfield, and you're not relying on just those 2 alone.
Yeah, and not everyone has to play to an absolute belter every single blinder every week. Others will step up, whether it's a youngster, whether it's an old guy, or just them gelling well together. So I think the midfield has been slightly underrated for South Fremantle.
On the subject of midfield, Claremont, of course, they had Callan England, Bailey Rogers, Jai Bolton, and Lachlan Martinez firing as well. But it was that first quarter, they were playing catch-up from the outset. They weren't getting first to the football. Their forwards weren't firing. It only took until that second half to gain that confidence back. And that last quarter is something that Ash Prescott and the Claremont side will be looking at for a whole week. They were very ordinary in that last quarter as far as their kicking for goal. 1 goal, 8 in that last quarter.
Yeah, a bit of homework to do, maybe a bit of goal kicking practice at training. But yeah, I mean, you can say sort of all you want, but I think it's just the start. Like obviously the back end as well. But you can't give a side that sort of deficit at the start of a game. 4-quarter effort is what you need. And yeah, I don't know if they were if they were half asleep or what happened there, because you don't see that too often from a Claremont side.
A very powerful side, nonetheless.
I know they got belted by East Fremantle the week before, but at the same time, you think they would have learnt their lesson.
Yeah, they did, but they couldn't get the 4 points on this occasion. South Fremantle home by a point at Fremantle Oval. Well, Claremont weren't the only team that struggled in front of goal. West Perth beaten by Subiaco by 4 points at Leederville Oval. We spoke with Greg Clark a little earlier. He played another key role as well with 25 disposals in Subiaco's 10-9 to 8-17 win. Ethan, what can you say? West Perth 0-4 to begin the first quarter, and then 3 goals 6 in the second, and then 3 goals 1. They were a little bit more accurate as their most productive quarter, and then 2 goals 6. They had plenty of chances in that last quarter, but couldn't get it done.
Inaccurate affair, to say the least. And they actually got in front at about the 21 or 22 minute mark of the last quarter. Kane Bevan Bernard at home and nice goal, and he thought, maybe they were a chance to rectify themselves, but yeah, it's another catch-up affair, I guess you could say, from West Perth. And I think it was a pretty good game of football. It wasn't a too high-scoring game, but Subiaco ultimately got the chocolates.
Absolutely. Of course, Subiaco, they had their forwards again in tandem. Will Hickmott, Jack Mayo, 2 goals each. Ben Sokol, he was pretty much well held. Only had the 5 possessions, but didn't have his best game. Greg Clark, as I said, 25 disposals. And Jack Mayo, he's one that wasn't really talked about a lot in the pre-season, but his work rate, not only in the middle, but also up forward, is really paying dividends for the Lions.
It's amazing what he's been able to do, once his body's been right. He's had so many injuries with his knees in the past, obviously coming off St Kilda's list, but you can see why he was drafted to the top level. He's just an absolute talent and works up the ground really well, but also gets back and hits the scoreboard. Really, really reliable, I feel, in front of goal.
He certainly is, Jack Mayo.
Won't let you down.
Absolutely. So is Will Hickmott. He kicked 2 goals straight, as well as Jack Mayo. He kicked 2 goals, 1. Greg Clark also added the 3 behinds, by the way. On the other side of West Perth, considering that they were without 4 of their premiership stars, one of them was Pegararo, one of the keys in West Perth's spine, and Tristan Hobley, who is an absolute ball magnet in midfield, can play a bit of half forward. It was a solid effort by West Perth. I mean, they had 10 more inside 50s, especially getting those 50s in the last quarter and peppering the goals. Couldn't convert, but again, you had plays like Meadows and Black firing. Shane Nelson, an absolute ball magnet, once again with another 30-plus disposal game. Jasper Scaife, I was very impressed with Jasper Scaife. 3 goals straight. Tyler Keitel, 2 goals 6. But up forward, Jasper Scaife, I reckon, when Tyler Keitel eventually retires, will be a long way away. I reckon Jasper Scaife could be that new power forward for West Perth.
Coming of age, and I know West Perth will want to keep him desperately because I think there might be a bit of attention for the mid-season draft potentially coming up, so they'll be desperate for his services. He's just coming of age through the Colts program, and he looks so much. He has added so much muscle to his body. It's not even funny. Like, he's so much bigger. He looks a completely different person from his Colts days to his senior days, and really stepped up. I know, as you said, Tristan Hobley would have loved to verse his old side, but it wasn't to be. But they'll take some positives from that, albeit not coming away with the 4 points.
Absolutely. 46 to 36 inside 50s, as I said. Scoring shots 25 to 19. So West Perth, they had more shots, they had more 50s, but they still lost the game. Subiaco, just off that first quarter start, we said the same thing about South Fremantle. That first quarter start was going to be ever more vital. They'd only kicked 6 goals after that, but in the end, that would be enough for Subiaco. Resolute Subiaco, 2-1, of course, after losing in round 1. They've got 2 wins on the trot. They are victorious by 4 points over West Perth. Okay, Perth taking on Swan Districts over at Mineral Resources Park. This one was another tight encounter, and again, it was the team that was trailing at quarter time, playing catch-up football and getting to within a kick. This time, the Demons' second straight win at home. Yeah,
the pressure was evident all night, wasn't it? Really made an effort to put a lot of pressure on the ball carrier from Swan Districts, and Demons back in a good place, I guess, on the win-loss ratio.
Yeah, 2-1. No one would have thought that at the start of the season, to have the Demons at 2-1 at the start of the season. Okay, sure, their wins were at home. They did cop a hammering in round 2 at the hands of West Perth, but to see them bounce back and get back on the winners list show tremendous endeavour against the fellow finals prospect in Swan Districts, who have got tremendous depth all around the ground, is wonderful to see for the competition.
Yeah, and Swans came late, didn't they? They surged, and Perth really struck me early days, but they strike me as him plays really well at home. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to struggle every week on the road, but you can tell when they're at home in front of their faithful, they seem a lot of a better side.
They get spurred on, don't they? But their key performers again were outstanding. Josh Edwards in the ruck, 37. Austin Davies and Charlie Constable. I mean, since coming over from the Gold Coast VFL Premiership team, Charlie Constable has been nothing short of incredible. I spoke with him before the round 1 game against Subiaco, and he said to me he's enjoying his footy a lot more. He's playing with a lot more confidence, and he feels excited to go to a new environment. And since coming to Perth, he has really started like a house of fire.
28 in the middle as well, and it's an impactful 28. I feel every time he gets the ball, it's not just a cheap handball here or there. It's actually really impactful, whether he's kicking it forward, whether he's setting up his teammates, hitting the scoreboard. He's really getting the ball, but with great purpose.
Yeah. So he's got it with purpose, and he's able to deliver every single time. That's why, he's among the Gold Coast best in that VFL Premiership side of last year. Jacob Caniglio, of course, another good midfielder who can play a bit down back. He saw a lot of the footy. Corey Byrne as well. And Aaron Clark, 2 goals up forward. Clarkey continues to be that number 1 presence up forward for the Demons.
It's consistency with Clarkey. Every week he's just hitting the scoreboard. Bags of 3, 2 goals. Not absolute massive bags, but just doing what he needs to get his side over the line in a tight win.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on Swan Districts, of course, another close game. Is this deja vu from last year? Only time will tell. But, the likes of Jesse Turner, again, the ball carriers, along with him, new recruit Nick Rokar and Aidan Clark were the leading possession getters. But I found that Swan Districts in that second half was starting to put a lot more pressure on the ball compared to Perth. They were slowly thinking that they were going to be in a better position. They got first to the football a lot. They had the likes of Pina, who was again magnificent, 6 marks. Brad Lynch, bit of a revelation under the radar, 20 disposals. And of course, as I mentioned, Tony Knott, the veteran, along with Jesse Turner, the experience coming to the forefront for Swan Districts when it needed to be in that second half.
He just keeps on keeping on. Tony Knott doesn't.
Oh, you better believe it.
Just an absolute stalwart. It's probably the definition of a WAFL stalwart, let's be real.
Certainly is. Perth getting their second win of the season, 3 points over Swan Districts over at Lathlane. Okay, now, be honest, Ethan. Who saw this coming? Who saw this coming?
Absolutely no one.
Oh, not anyone in the world. 660 days since the West Coast Eagles last won a WAFL match, and to do it against the reigning premiers. Of all teams against the reigning premiers and trail at every change, what an incredible win by the Eagles. 4 points over East Fremantle at Mineral Resources Park. And dare I say it, the upset of the century in WAFL history, no doubt about it. But again, it was down to the AFL experience, but also just the fact that if you're a tad off your game, anybody can beat anyone on any given day. East Fremantle found that out.
Yeah, and I think that's been a common theme. People have been saying, if you're 5% off your game, anyone can beat you. And I think in the back of people's mind, people probably thought that's true, barring West Coast. But it even seems with West Coast now, if you're a slight bit off, they can get you. And we sat here and probably thought that 100-point win to East Fremantle was way more likely than any West Coast victory. And you said John O'Marshall kicked 10 goals.
He didn't play.
He didn't even play.
Had a hamstring injury.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Could have been the difference. You never know.
At the worst possible time. I cannot believe I made that call, but oh well, that's football for you sometimes. But for West Coast, again, the experience of Dom Shed and Andrew Gaff proving such high value. Zane True, incredible, 24 disposals, and as Ethan's mics fall down, I think the mic is even in shock after the Eagles win. But what the hell, Jermaine Jones, 24 disposals, and up forward, Trey Rusco, very, very impressive, impactful inside 50, kicked 3 goals.
He did, yeah. He's been a nice recruit coming off Collingwood's list. Gives him a little bit of a different look up there. So and obviously not on an AFL list, so he's playing consistently every week.
The move that made the difference for me in that game, they started Liam Ryan on half-back. Now, that confused the Sharks' forward line. How do they work him out across half-back? And Liam Ryan made the move count, 19 disposals, 5 marks, but his ability to get first to the football in defensive 50 and completely nullify the Sharks' usually high impact in that 50 was a key.
Arguably best on ground as well. So he obviously won't spend too many games in the WAFL, but that caught East Fremantle off guard, and I just wonder, complacency, do you put it down to that? Obviously coming off a monster win against Claremont, they got the Eagles, this is just going to be easy. I'm not saying that's the case, but when you lose a game like that, it's I think they're probably just as shocked as anyone.
Yeah, of course, they've got Swan Districts on the Anzac Day weekend. No doubt that this will serve as a really big wake-up call considering what has been going on for East Fremantle since their premiership win. Milan Murdoch, 26 disposals. Again, one of the big driving forces in the Sharks engine room. Bryn Teakle, how impressive is he in the ruck? He has gotten better since his return after being delisted from Port Adelaide. He's playing high on confidence, 52 hitouts.
It's his mobility as well in the hitouts. That's just insane. Anytime you get over 50, you're dominating one way or the other. So, in a loss, that's a positive for him, his continued development.
There was an even scoring spread as well, so the forwards weren't as affected by the Marsh out. Of course, Jonathan Marsh had to sit out due to a hamstring injury. Hagan and Lawler kicked 2 goals along with Josh Schoenfeld. Cody Leggett 1 goal, 3, but there was that missing link up forward, that could have proved costly. If Marsh did play, in hindsight, of course, Marsh kicked seven goals in the round 2 win over Claremont. If he was there, maybe it could have made a difference, but hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and you don't want to rely on him too much. I think a strength of theirs last year, he didn't play in the grand final when they won the premiership. So they've done it before. It's not to say they can't do it again without him, albeit they're obviously a better team with him there.
It has to be said, the Eagles winning, though, it is good for the competition. You want to see those teams that are low on the ladder win in the most unexpected moments. And for the Eagles to do it against the reigning premiers might have been an omen for later in the day when the Eagles beat Richmond in the AFL. But it is good to see the Eagles ecstatic. Of course, Kyle Horsley, former Subi champion, his first win as Eagles coach. So a big moment early on in the season.
Yeah, you'd like to see that. There's obviously been a lot of discussion about West Coast's future in the competition. So, hopefully that'll put it to bed a little bit for the now.
Let them stay here in the WAFL. That's all I'll say. Let them stay here in the WAFL. The ladder after round 3's matches. East Perth, despite the loss, they're on top and they're joined by 5 other teams, with 8 points. South Fremantle, West Perth, Subiaco, Peel Thunder, and Perth. Swan Districts and the West Coast Eagles, the remaining teams scoring. Of course, West Coast, who would have thought we'd see them with 4 points, given what has been going on. East Fremantle still on 0 as a result of the salary cap breach in the off-season. And Claremont, who would have thought Claremont 0-3?
Never would have seen it coming, would you? And all those 5 teams on 8 points, I dare say, I wouldn't be surprised, as it happened last year, that percentage will probably play a part in where teams finish on the ladder because the points just won't split.
Absolutely, but we still got a long way to go. Only 3 rounds in, and the season is getting really, really good. This is Around the WAFL, your go-to podcast in 2024.
Win. Almost a win. Win. It's win-win at the WAFL. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
Okay, Ethan, my favourite point of the show, the votes for the Player of the Year. Starting off with 1 vote, Zach Strom from South Fremantle. If one Strom don't get you, the other will. And Zach Strom proved that with another 5-goal bag. He was incredible. 2 votes for Subiaco, Jack Mayo. Man, his work up forward, but also pushing up the ground in adding that depth to Subiaco's midfield division, and the scoreboard pressure that the Lions had against West Perth was critical.
So agile.
Absolutely. His mobility at every end of the ground was incredible. 3 votes, Flying Ryan. Liam Ryan from the Eagles. Again, his role off halfback, vital in stopping the usually high East Fremantle impact up forward. He was incredible. 4 votes from Perth, Charlie Constable. Great start of the season. He's having another 28 disposal game. Was very efficient in his delivery from midfield. And the Around the WAFL top gun of round 3, 5 votes goes to Peel Thunder's Jacob Blight. What a role he played in the defensive 50, shutting down a usually efficient East Perth forward line.
You can't underestimate defenders, can you?
Absolutely. And got to give every part of the ground the love, not just the midfielders, man.
This isn't a midfielder's award, as I know some might think it is.
No, it's not. You better believe it. It is not. But Jacob Blight, congratulations to him. He gets the Top Gun plaudits and the 5 votes for round 3. The first leaderboard will come at round 5, at the end of round 5 of season 2024. Well, that wraps it up for today's show, Ethan. What a round of footy it was, and there is still a long way to go.
There is, and if that can duplicate in round 4, then we're in for a treat, aren't we?
Oh, no doubt about it. Listeners, we look forward to your company on Thursday. Only 2 games in round 4. We'll preview both of them, and we've got a very special surprise guest that'll be coming your way as well. Stay tuned on Thursday. We look forward to your company then.